back to Movies Are So Back, the YouTube movie review channel where I, Ethan Simmie, ask the question, are movies so back? This past weekend featured the nationwide release of one of, if not the single biggest movie of the summer in Twisters, starring Glen Powell, Daisy Edgar-Jones, Anthony Ramos, Brandon Pereira, Kiernan Shipka, just a slew of really awesome movie stars. It's kind of a legacy sequel, maybe, to the 1996 5-star certified masterpiece of a natural disaster film in Twister. Story this time, pretty much the same thing. We're chasing Twisters, we're trying to win some grant money along the way, and we're falling in love. Except Twisters doesn't really do it very well. Now, I realize I'm on the outside on this one. Twisters is being coined as the movie of the summer, and trust me, I wanted to be part of the Twisters hive. I've been loving every single second of the press tour, the interviews, everything surrounding Twisters. But unfortunately, I like that more than I like the movie, and that hurts. It hurts to live my truth, but I have to live my truth. Twisters is certainly not the movie of the summer, and quite honestly, it's not even a good movie. Now, I am spoiling Twisters in this short review, so you've been warned. Now, let's start with the few things that I did like. Glen Powell is a fucking movie star. I don't know how else to put it, and I kind of hate the fact that he is so good in this movie when the movie as a whole is not good, but every time Glen Powell was on screen and speaking, I just was like, that's a movie star, and I love movies. Twister spun its way to an $80.5 million opening weekend. That is the third highest opening weekend of the year so far, only behind Dune Part 2 and Inside Out Part 2. People are seeing this movie, and people are loving this movie, and people are going to see this movie again. I wish I was one of those people. I so desperately do. But even Glen Powell, being the best movie star we have right now, can't get me out of the fact that I didn't like Twisters. The VFX in Twisters was really, really solid, especially when you compare it against the 1996 Twister, in which you kind of just have to accept what the tornadoes look like in that movie, even though they don't look very good. But in Twisters, they look really, really good, especially considering there was a fire tornado that looked like a real fire tornado. So that was really sick. To see that on an IMAX screen was pretty cool. Brandon Pereira needs to be in more things. I don't know who to tell, who to contact, or how we get the word out, but he needs to be in more things.
Are you seeing this? We got twins! Twins!
Now, he is not Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I know nobody ever will be, but he did a pretty good job of encapsulating Philip Seymour Hoffman's aura from Twister in Twisters, and he brought it the best that he could, and I was actually pretty impressed. I loved his energy in this movie. I wanted like so much more screen time with him. He does a very similar role in Nope, in which I think he is sublime as well, so he was a huge highlight of this movie for me. And the final good thing that I wanted to mention about Twisters, did I say how Glen Powell is a movie star? I really enjoyed his YouTube kind of angle on this and his band of misfit tornado chasers that he wrangles together. I loved that whole aspect of the movie. Now, for the rest of the movie and the things that I didn't like or didn't really work at all for me, kind of the whole storyline of the movie. There's like 6 narratives. Like, what are we doing with like so many different storylines? We've got Daisy Edgar-Jones and her trauma. Now, the film opens up with an exceptionally harrowing sequence of her and her friends chasing a twister, only for her to lose her friends to that twister. The 1996 film opens up in a very similar fashion. While it's effective in that movie, I feel like it's less effective in this movie, only because that idea, that storyline, that adventure is being overshadowed by like 4 other things that we're trying to do narratively. And in the 1996 film, that's kind of like the main reason we're doing anything, is because of her trauma. I will say, marks against Twisters for following a really similar beat by beat plot point of Twister. Like it kind of does the same thing all throughout the movie. And I just wanted a little more originality. Daisy Edgar-Jones falling in love with Glen Powell, also not dissimilar from Bill Paxton falling in love with Helen Hunt in Twister. It works exceptionally well in that movie because that's the only thing we focus on. In this movie, it's the thing that I liked the most and the thing that I wanted us to pour the most amount of time and attention into. It just feels like it's unfortunately underbaked, even though they have moments alone together in the movie, fostering this love and this adoration for each other, where they do realize they're kind of fit for each other. And we get to the end in which they do ultimately realize that, which I thought played out quite corny, by the way. It just isn't the thing we focused on. And I thought it was kind of ineffective when you mash it all together with the other things we're trying to do. They also didn't even kiss at the end of this movie. And there's tons of discourse around that, and that's its own thing. But like, let hot people kiss in movies. That I will stand on that forever and always. Like, come on. And then we've got individual character backstories and arcs for both Daisy Edgar-Jones and her scientific exploration of how to collapse Twister, and Glen Powell and his kind of scientific kid turned YouTube phenomenon, and it just felt really hollow. It felt like we didn't explore that enough and didn't really hearken on the fact of like why those are important and how they come together to work. And I know people are going to call out the scene in the barn. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, but it just didn't work for me. It just felt extremely ineffective and inconsequential. Ultimately, we got to pick one. We got to pick one storyline and we got to stick to it. That's my biggest problem with the film, is that it tries to tackle too many obtuse storylines, when in reality, we could have just focused on the love story between Daisy Edgar-Jones and Glen Powell, and things would have been great. The movie also ultimately feels overextended in its runtime. By the time we get to the climactic third act and encounter even more twisters, which I think we had too many twisters in this movie, which is incredibly sacrilegious to say about a movie titled Twisters. But by the time we get to the end, I kind of just wanted the movie to be over, even though we were like at the huge moment of like twisters are crazy and bad and cool. And that's a problem. I realize so many people are going to disagree with me on this take, and I wish that I was part of your crew. I wish that I could recommend Twisters and say, go see the movie of the summer in IMAX. It's awesome. Movies are so back. But I just like can't in good conscience do that. Good for the box office? Yes. Good for movies? No, because it's just not a very good movie. So, are movies so back? Well, kind of. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 on the movies are so back scale. Glen Powell is a movie star. I wanted more Brandon Pereira, Kiernan Shipka, Daisy Edgar-Jones, pretty much everybody. Didn't get enough of them. The movie definitely suffers from blockbuster syndrome, trying to do way too much in an overextended runtime, and it all becomes muddled and falls pretty flat. But twisters are also pretty cool and might be the coolest natural disaster to ever occur. So, movies are kind of so back. I'll see you in the next video, where I hope that I can say more firmly, more positively, that movies are so back.